Hi, everybody. We're going to keep a little time at the beginning here to let people in. Make sure anyone who wants to participate and join for this webinar, that we'll be able to include them.
Okay, I think we're ready to begin.
Wonderful.
Okay, well, welcome everyone to the Peach Payments webinar on multi-currency. We're going to start in a minute. I'm just going to give some basic house rules before we begin. So we have a great Q&A session lined up. That will be starting as soon as we finish the presentation. So to ask any of your questions, we've got a Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom screen. What you can do is type your question in, we'll keep them, and then we'll answer them towards the end. I want to let you know that this webinar is also being recorded. So we'll share it on our social media channels. So make sure that you follow Peach Payments on social media. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and keep an eye on our channels to gain access to that. Cool. So I'm happy to begin. I'm going to introduce Joshua Shimkin, who's the head of SME growth and marketing at Peach Payments. He's going to take us
Hi,
through
everybody.
a really great presentation, and then we'll open up to our other panelists and guests afterwards. So Josh, over to you.
Thanks very much, Yudhvir. So today, our subject is an introduction to multi-currency. And we're going to discuss some basics to start accepting multi-currency on Shopify and WooCommerce. We get a lot of questions about multi-currency since we're the only payment gateway in South Africa to offer this product. And it often gets very technical very quickly. So we thought, wow, why don't we just start a conversation with entrepreneurs and business owners in South Africa who care about scaling their business internationally, want to develop that international market. And let's start talking more about multi-currency because we know it is a hot subject. So let's get going. What is multi-currency processing? I like this definition. It's the processing of payments in different currencies. It allows businesses to display and transact payments in any currency without the merchant having to manage the constant fluctuation of exchange rates. Okay, sounds simple, right? We get a lot of questions though that combine several different types of processes when they use the words multi-currency. So what is it not? It is not accepting foreign cards. That's actually something that every payment gateway that's top tier should be able to today. That's not anything special. You can find that very easily in South Africa and any country, frankly, around the world that allows online payment processing, right? That's accepting someone using, for example, a US credit card or a German credit card on your South African website. And that would be a ZAR-based transaction. They would see ZAR and you would receive ZAR in checkout as well as in your payout or settlement. Well, why even go down this path, right? What are the benefits to your business if you're deciding to make the leap to start selling internationally? Well, there are four key things. First one is fewer chargebacks, okay? You'll be able to display your pricing in the customer's currency of choice, so they become more comfortable with the transaction and how much they're actually paying. That means less refunds. It also means it's going to reduce your product returns, all of which is going to simplify your life and make your business obviously more profitable. And lastly, you're going to create more evangelists because you're going to have such a nice customer flow and customer experience. So you're going to get better customer reviews on sites like Google Reviews, and in South Africa, Hello Peter. So take all these things into consideration, and they're benefits to your business. And it's one of the really good reasons why, if you want to start selling internationally, including multi-currency on your website is the way to go. Okay, this slide I think everybody should screenshot, because when I was talking about how confusing it can get about using the words multi-currency in a conversation, it's this slide that gets into the complexity, because often people talk about multi-currency from three different standpoints. The first one is displaying multi-currency on your website. The second one is actually checking out in that foreign currency. And then lastly, it's settling in that foreign currency into your own merchant account. So let's go through all these different types of processing you can have in your website. So okay, the first is traditional. What does that mean? A normal website, it's a South African-based online store. You can process credit cards and debit cards from all around the world. That's what everybody can do right now. Simple, it's traditional. Okay, what's the level 1 complexity? Well, this is where you can, of course, trade like you normally would, but now you're displaying foreign currencies to your customers. But when they go to the checkout, it still displays in rands, or let's call that your base currency, whatever base currency you've chosen, but it's only one currency. Okay, now your second level of complexity. Now you've got your regular store, you're displaying a foreign currency, you're checking out in rands, right? But you then can also have the option of checking out in a foreign currency. So the customer can see that foreign currency in the checkout. That's what they see on their receipt. But in South Africa, what happens is you as the merchant will get paid out in rands, and that's non-negotiable. That's a rule from the South African Reserve Bank, and you will always get paid out in rands. There's no option to receive dollars or euros or pounds into your merchant account. Now, the final level of complexity is about countries other than South Africa. For example, Mauritius, where Peach Payments also operates. In Mauritius, for example, you can actually take that last step and check out and receive your payout in a foreign currency like dollars or ZAR even. And that's a feature that Mauritius can offer, but not available in South Africa. Okay, so I hope you're adding questions to our Q&A button. I'm sure people have a bunch of questions already. We're going to save them to the end. Hopefully, I'll answer some of them along the way. But please use that Q&A button in Zoom so that we can capture all these questions and answer them once I'm done. Okay, so getting started on Shopify. It's a very, very popular subject that people call us about. We offer integrations with Shopify, WooCommerce, Wix, Ecwid, NopCommerce, OpenCart, PrestaShop, and soon we'll be onboarding more integrations. Of course, we have a custom API and mobile SDK for custom integrations as well. But let's talk about Shopify at first. So Shopify offers the Shopify Plus plan, which is actually $2,000 a month. But in South Africa, you can do it a different way. You don't need the Shopify Plus plan. So really what you can do is you can think about it as checking out in each Shopify store requires one base currency applied to every store. You can't have multiple currencies applied to an individual store. So your first step should be to create a store in ZAR if you're a South African merchant. Now, many plugins in Shopify let you display foreign currencies. And the unique part of Shopify Plus is it lets you have that one base currency, but actually display the pricing and checkout in multiple currencies, even when you've got your store as one base currency. But in South Africa, you can't do it that way, or it can be cost prohibitive to do it that way. So you can create a second Shopify store with a different base currency to serve your international market. Most often, business owners choose dollars, as that as the base currency of their second store. Now, when you're thinking about other things you need in that store to be compliant in South Africa, you need to make sure that the contact information on both websites, in both stores, shows that you're a South African business. It's a very important requirement. And then lastly, when you're thinking in broad strokes about operating this business, you want to geofence using IP address location your South African store, so South African customers see that first. And then for all international customers, you want them to see your international store that's now based in dollars. Okay, so for WooCommerce, how would you get started in WooCommerce? Well, the most important thing you need to know is you don't need multiple URLs or subdomains for your website. It's a very big difference between Shopify and WooCommerce for dealing with multi-currency. First, you pick a base currency for your WooCommerce store, but now there are tons of approved plugins that will both display prices in any currency and check out that price in your store to Peach Payments. A theme we recommend and plugin we recommend for multi-currency, is Villa Themes Currency WooCommerce multi-currency plugin. You can see it as point 4 on this slide, and you can screenshot this slide and use that URL. It's $34 for that plugin. And that will seamlessly connect multi-currency processing, on your WooCommerce and WordPress website. And the last thing I want to add to this is just some thoughts around the best uses of Shopify and WooCommerce. And what we've seen is Shopify is really optimized for selling physical goods, where a WordPress and WooCommerce combination can better serve businesses that have products, but also have services that are SaaS-based or digital downloads or consulting, things like this. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about how to start a business that wants to accept multi-currency payments. One of the key things you need to have, in fact, it's the most essential thing when you're operating a multi-currency business, is a multi-currency account, which is a very specific thing that certain banks will offer. And Peach Payments is a sponsor for a multi-currency plan. The banks have rules around what you need to provide to be able to get one of these accounts that you can then link to your store to receive the settlement, to receive the payout from all your sales. So let's go through some of the things that are important to consider, because we're always talking to merchants who are asking us, how do I get this account? How can I get started? And there's some items that are really important to know. First one is there's no drop shipping allowed. That's a core rule, and often we talk a lot to merchants about how can they build a business that gives them the flexibility that drop shipping has, but frankly is not drop shipping. And so we encourage people to call us up and get our advice about how to navigate that. Products must be sourced and shipped from South Africa. The website must display clearly that it's a South African business. You must have 3 months of bank statements in the business name or director's name. They want to see a little bit of a trading history. The prices must be displayed in ZAR to a South African customer. So for example, SARB and the banks don't want South Africans transacting on South African credit cards or debit cards in dollars with a South African store online. And lastly, there must be a website, even if your business is really a mobile app based channel. Okay, the last important piece here are understanding the fees. And this is, we've tried to make it a simple example here so that everyone can understand that the cost of processing multi-currency payments can often be around 8.3% in fees. So let's use this example. A US customer is using a US credit card to buy sneakers for $100. And so let's assume the conversion rate is 18 rands to the dollar. So $100 is 1800 rand. At this point, the transaction's made at $100 to the customer because it's in multi-currency. There's a 5% fee attributed to this conversion from the $100 to the 1800 rand. And that fee amounts to 90 rand in this example, which leaves 1710 rand left for the merchant. And now at this point, the bank payment processing fees are attributed to the transaction, and that is often at 3.3% plus 1 rand 50 per transaction. So at 1710, at 1710 rands, that amounts to a 57 rand and 93 cent payment for bank processing. So when you total up those two amounts, the merchant receives 1652 rand and 7 cents and pays 147 rand and 93 cents in fees. So one of the risks we always want to talk about with our merchants is what happens when the currency exchange rate changes and you might have to do a refund. And what if that exchange rate now goes out of your favor? It pushes up to 19 rand to the dollar. Well, in this example, if it does move to 19 rand to the dollar, and you'll need to refund that full $100 amount to the customer, that's now 1900 rand. And that's a cash loss to you as the merchant of 247 rand and 93 cents. So we wanted to keep this simple because frankly, we would love to hear questions from everybody. We want to open it up, and I know that Yudhvir has been looking at the Q&A. And first, I also want to introduce our Chief Operating Officer, Sandeep Chagger, who operates from Mauritius. And I know, Sandeep, there are a couple of things you wanted to mention first off. So Yudhvir, I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Questions are coming in thick and fast now, which is great. So I'm going to start with one that came in just before the webinar, actually via email. And it's around how does multi-currency work, outside of South Africa, and in particular in Mauritius. It looks like this merchant comes from there. So, Josh, Sandeep?
Well, thanks, Yudhvir. So Peach Payments, we operate in South Africa, Mauritius, and Kenya. Mauritius, as we all know, is one of the world's leading offshore and international financial centers. And what that attributes is ease of exchange control and a tax rate of around 3 to 15%, depending on the sector that you're operating in and the way you're operating your business. Now, what we are pushing a lot of the global companies is to make Mauritius their billing and treasury center, right? Why would we say that? Because you can process payments in multiple currencies from with a single banking partner and with Peach Payments. Secondly, you can reach out a global consumer base with your merchant account being in Mauritius. You can do IP-based routing. That means a customer from Europe pays in euro, a customer from US pays in US dollars, customer in Singapore pays in Singaporean dollars, and the local customer from Mauritius pays in Mauritian rupees. Now, this is highly useful for companies that are selling to a global consumer base. For example, it can be a SaaS company like a Zoho or an Odoo, or a retail brand selling globally. There are multiple currencies that they can process their payments in. Whatever is debited for a consumer, the same value is credited for the merchant in that particular currency in which the payment has taken place. In addition to the same, you can transfer the money to any other entity or country that you're operating your business in. There's ease of exchange control in Mauritius. One of the reasons why most of the world's leading organizations set up either their headquarters in Mauritius, or they set up their treasury center or a billing center in Mauritius. In addition to that, the tax rate in Mauritius is at a standard 15%. And if most of your business is international, you can also avail a tax benefit, which can take you down to a net effective tax rate of 3%. So yes, that's the overall advantage of setting up your global business from Mauritius, selling to a global consumer in different parts of the world from the island nation of Mauritius.
Okay.
I want to take a quick second and acknowledge the fact that we don't have a merchant here today. We had intended to include the CEO and co-founder of Pichulik, a wonderful jewelry brand and accessory brand based in Cape Town, South Africa. But unfortunately, Tracy came down with the flu and couldn't join us today. So I just want to mention that in case anyone was anticipating a conversation with her. And we look forward to doing more of those. And I know we're going to include more merchants in a multi-currency conversation. So just stay tuned, follow us on LinkedIn and on Facebook, and you'll know the next time we talk to a merchant about multi-currency. Sorry, Yubir, take it away.
No, thanks, Josh. Thanks for clarifying that. Okay, some good ones coming to the Q&A. This is from Carl. A very good question. I accept international card payments, and more of those fail than local card payments. Why?
I accept say it again, international card payments and domestic card payments.
Yeah,
but more of the
international card payments fail. Why is that?
Oh boy, I can start. Okay, there could be lots of reasons why that's happening. The one that we see most often is around 3D Secure, and the fact that how foreign banks who've issued the card apply our 3D Secure rules when trading with a South African-based entity and a South African-based payment gateway can vary around the world, and how they translate that technical configuration around 3D Secure varies from bank to bank, from issuer to issuer. And we actually do a lot of work with our operations team in optimizing those channels, those bins in industry terms, so that foreign banks know how to process payments better with South African stores. I don't know, Sandeep, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yes, definitely. There can be multiple reasons why a transaction, could fail. There could be multiple reasons, but one of the key reasons why a lot of the international card transaction in another jurisdiction fail is the 3D Secure authentication. Now, even from a 3D Secure authentication, it has evolved from 3DS1, that is the version 1, to version 2, right? And what happens is, if the card issuing bank is still on 3DS1, whereas the acquirer, that is, or the payment provider, is on 3DS2, there's a mismatch, and hence, the transaction fails. It's interesting to see that, there are different layers in a singular transaction. What may seem like a transaction that takes a second, when I put in my card details, everything goes through the transaction, either succeeds or fails. There are multiple contributors to that supply chain. There's your payment gateway, there's your merchant acquiring bank, right? There is the card networks, and then there is the issuing bank. So the failure point failure can happen at any of these pointers, which is beyond, your basic card limit, fraud, and the basic reasons for transaction failures. But yes, 3DS2 to 3DS1, this has been one of the major reasons for a lot of transactions failing in the international for cross-border transactions. And this is reducing because all the banks are now have now evolved or updated to the latest standards or protocols of authentication.
And just one last point, this is why you want to have multiple payment methods on your website, right? When cards are failing, you've got EFTs, you've got buy now, pay later, you've got QR codes, so that you're giving your customer an option. Now, that becomes more complicated internationally, of course, because many of those payment methods aren't offered internationally. But that's what a merchant, an owner of a business, needs to be thinking about. And that's why we offer so many payment methods ourselves. Next question.
Okay,
We
next
could talk. We
question.
could talk about payment failures, for example, for a whole hour. Actually,
Yeah.
so Yudhvir, let's actually set that up as another webinar, because that's a great question. Because
Yeah.
we do so much work in terms of looking at bins and talking to banks about making sure that cards work. That we should talk more about that.
Okay, next question. Josh, I think you touched on this briefly in your presentation. How is currency conversion calculated?
Oh, wow. So I'll start this, but Martin Jones, who's a sales manager on our sales team, actually knows a little bit more about this. But this comes down to the currency converter you use in the transaction flow. So for Shopify websites working with Peach Payments, we have preferred providers who do the currency calculation using the spot rate, which is the rate right now in real time, and they do that work for you. Right, and that's their job. That's what the transaction fee, that 5% fee, is for them to be able to operate that in real time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for the whole year. Other payment, and so depending on your integration, you might use a different currency converter. We have our preferred converters. Obviously, Shopify can do that itself with Shopify Plus. So it's a mix of different suppliers who offer that service. Martin, is there anything you'd add?
Hi, Josh. That is absolutely correct. Yeah, the currency conversion partner that we use has a live FX feed direct into the platform, and it is in real time. So at the time of the transaction, that is when the spot rate or the currency conversion fee is applied.
Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, cool.
See how many questions we can get through.
Yeah, this is okay. Next one's from Derek. Derek asks, can we do a custom integration with Peach for multi-currency, or do we have to integrate it via WooCommerce setup? And
you can do a custom integration. Easy.
We're a SaaS business. Okay.
No problem. Cool. Much longer conversation, though. That's why we're not covering it here, because what you're coming with could be lots of different types of technologies. But we do custom integrations all the time.
Yeah. Thanks, Josh. Quick and easy. Okay, this is a good question. What if you are a booking system for an event hosted in another country, but the client is a South African company hosting events in SA and other countries? I'll ask that again. What if you are a booking system for an event hosted in another country, but the client is a South African company hosting events in SA and other countries?
If the merchant account, if let's say where you're accepting the money is in South Africa and the customer is from South Africa, then as per the regulatory guidelines, it has to be South African rand. But if let's say your company is in Europe and the event is happening in Europe, your merchant account is in Europe, but it's a South African customer, then it can be any currency, ideally euro, but any international currency.
I want to have a button to see which one of us answers it quicker.
Well, I'm going to send this one to Sandeep.
I almost went like this to say I got it.
I'm going to send this one to Sandeep because it's Mauritius question. So Gerrit asks, can one operate a bank account in Mauritius without having a local entity, i.e. hold a bank account in Mauritius for a South African-based company?
So if you want to process online payments in Mauritius, you either need to be a domestic company or a global business company. There's another category of companies in Mauritius, which is called an authorized company, which for now, most of the banking acquirers do not accept for online payments. So as of date, you either have to be registered as a domestic company or a global business company in Mauritius to have a bank account on which we can enable card processing, card acceptance.
Okay, thanks, Sandeep. Okay, this one's going to be out there for any three of you. And this is from Nikki. So Nikki asks, is there a separate fee for the currency conversion partner, or is that or is that included in the 5%?
That's the 5%.
That's the 5%.
That currency conversion using that spot rate is the purpose of the 5%.
Okay, great. Another fairly general one. We don't know who this is from, anonymous. What are the benefits of using multi-currency when selling in international markets?
I think we can all take that question.
Yeah. So I'll start. It reduces the confusion for your customer, right? Everybody wants to see the purchase price in a currency that they're most familiar with. Frankly, you want to see it in the currency that you get paid in for your salary or however you live your life, because you don't want the complication of having to figure out what the FX rate is for that purchase, or what that FX rate will be applied for that purchase. You might wonder, is this purchase actually going to come off tomorrow from a banking perspective? And therefore the currency might change, and therefore I can't be sure how much I'm spending in my home currency. So it's the whole purpose is to remove that confusion. And it is a commitment, though, from you as the business owner to be able to offer that type of service in South Africa. And that's why we're trying to make it clear, how would you get started? Sandeep, anything you would add, or Martin?
No, definitely. I mean, Josh, you've covered it well. So it's basically acceptance. If I'm going online and I see my home currency, my chances of, making that transaction is higher, and secondly, I have that certainty that if let's say I'm based in Mauritius and I'm paying in a global site, the amount that's getting debited from my account is a known amount. It is not that, I'm paying in a currency and something else will get debited from my account. So it is certainty, that I have with regards to that particular transaction. And today, if you look at most of the global businesses, if you look at airlines, if you look at hotels, whichever country that you access their site, it shows the local currency, and the chances of, because the chances of you transacting become higher, and more business for the merchant.
Cool, thanks guys. Ooh, this is a good one we talk about internally a lot. Is Peach Payment similar to using Stripe, but better for us based in South Africa?
Yes. Let me count the ways. Usually when people talk about Stripe, they talk about, there are two key things. When they're comparing payment gateways, let's say, it's ease of integration and flexibility to do what I want to do the way I want to do it on my website. And I think what we're all proud of here at Peach is we offer both. We offer great, easy to use, simple plugins that you can integrate without any software developer involved, and just copying and pasting a couple credentials. And for Shopify, Wix, WooCommerce, Ecwid, we have that simple methodology. But if your plans are more involved, if you want to do things a specific way on your website rather than having to, for example, get redirected, then we offer APIs and mobile SDKs to give you that option. And frankly, Martin talks to merchants every day who want to integrate in a custom way and have that flexibility, because I think a lot of merchants, when they come to us, they get frustrated sometimes because you have to get redirected when you go to checkout. And that's a rule that, for example, Shopify has, that if you're a third-party payment provider, you must get redirected and then come back to the website. But other platforms like WordPress and WooCommerce don't have that rule. And so you have more flexibility to create the type of on-website custom experience you'd like to. And what I'm proud of by working at Peach is we offer that kind of technology. And if you go to developers.peachpayments.com, you can see all the different documentation about it. Great question. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's a great question. Martin, I'm going to throw one your way. So Anonymous asks, what are the dangers of using a currency converter on your website if you don't have multi-currency processing? Martin, you're on mute.
Sorry, Yudva, was that a question for me?
Yeah.
You can use a currency converter on your website. There are APIs that can be used for custom integrations that can pull real-time currency conversion information at the time of checkout. And actually, we encourage that. I think if you can if you're taking a foreign card payment,
Right.
and the currency that you're accepting is ZAR, but you need to show your foreign card holder what that currency is in their home currency, and it's not a multi-currency transaction, that's beneficial. We can
Hey,
do that,
Martin,
or the other way around.
Hey, Martin, I think the question was talking about a more simple example where they're not doing multi-currency. They're only doing the display portion, but you still have to check out in the home currency, in the base currency. Have you seen any technical issues when someone's try to employ only the display piece of that user experience?
That would be on the platform itself. Okay, so it wouldn't be on our payment gateway, but we can, if it's a custom.
That's right. And I think you can, and from my experience, I think you can do it. I think it's a cognitive problem for the customer more than a technical problem, because there are tons of plugins that can do dynamic currency display on a website, and they're approved by all the different platforms. It's the cognitive problem of you've seen a price at once, and then you go to checkout, and now suddenly it could be wildly different, right, than what the customer has just been seeing. And so in my experience, that's where I see the problem of using only just the display feature of a currency and not having it all the way through checkout.
If I may add to that, so when you're seeing a presentment currency, that is a display currency, but in the back end, it is South African rand or any other currency. So whenever that international customer is paying, the amount that is shown and the amount debited on the card will be two different amounts, because the customer will be debited in the base currency, that is, let's say, South African rand. And hence, there will always be that variance. I don't know if we have any statistics to prove that it may lead to lesser conversions or less volume of transactions, but that could be a possibility. When the customer again and again transacts on that site and knows that the debit is different as compared to a website, a similar service provider, where there's certainty of transaction value being debited and transaction, the value being shown.
Okay, thanks, guys. Sandeep, I think let's stay with you. This is from Anonymous as well. So what are the security measures in place to protect both businesses and customers when using multi-currency?
What are the security measures, Yudhvir?
What are the security measures in place to protect both businesses and customers when using multi-currency?
I think regardless of whether multi-currency or not, we ensure top-grade security, especially from a transaction perspective for card processing via PCI DSS level 1 compliant, and we follow similar mechanisms for all other alternate payment method processing. So I mean, regardless of multi-currency, any card payment provider has to be compliant with the utmost security standards. And yes, multi-currency is part of it. I mean, the only ambiguity would be the currency conversion, but we factor it in the pricing. The pricing is slightly higher for multi-currency as compared to same currency processing or single currency processing. So I mean, the higher pricing is factored in because of the FX concerns, but overall, from an information security perspective, any payment has to go through the utmost security protocols and procedures in our line of business. So that is of utmost important, regardless of multi-currency or not.
And I'll just add that we do the same risk checks for domestic transactions or foreign card transactions or multi-currency transactions, right? It's all the same risk checks. There are velocity checks and a number of other things we do for every single merchant at Peach, and that doesn't change whether you're a multi-currency account or not.
Okay, next question. I have my own merchant account. If I want to process multi-currency payments to Peach, do I need to change my merchant account?
I wouldn't say you have to change it. I would say that for multi-currency processing, you need a new account and a special account. So your current one would not suffice. Now, you could still trade something into that account. It just can't be the multi-currency. aspect of your business.
Okay. Thanks, Josh.
So this is the right time for you, whoever asked the question, to take your business to 200 plus countries.
Cool. Next question. What types of businesses can benefit the most from implementing multi-currency payment solutions? And are there any industries where this is particularly crucial?
Hey.
Happy. Yeah. After Josh.
Well, I'll just start. I alluded to this a little bit on one of my slides. You know, we think that where we've seen the most success are for businesses that don't need to ship physical goods, because it's much easier to predict what you're going to earn, and therefore manage your margins for your business to make sure the trading volume stays profitable for you. It gets much more complicated when you have physical goods you need to ship around the world, and you need to source them and ship them, and how to do that efficiently is a real challenge and will consume a lot of your time. So once you've invested the time and you've gone through the process, it can be worth it. But you have to be ready for the challenge, is what I'd say, and you have to take that interrogation really seriously. Martin or Sandeep, is there anything you would add when answering this question?
Yeah, I would say that also the banks look on non-tangible delivery as less risk, because there's risk in delivering and time of fulfillment for tangible goods. So there's that aspect as well. It's how the bank sees the risk in terms of chargeback risk. So with non-tangible goods, the fulfillment is instant. I'll just throw that in there.
Yeah.
Just to echo what Josh said, and what Martin mentioned, that digital products or services are easier to sell because the logistics and delivery part is eliminated. But if you look at the logistics sector in Africa has evolved, last mile delivery in multiple countries have evolved, and international linkages to Africa have increased over the years. And there are a lot of shipping aggregators, startups that are investing into this sector. So it's become even more easy to create a global business now as compared to 5 or 10 years earlier. The other thing that you need to be mindful, when you're running a global business is, be mindful of the international regulation, the International Data Protection Act or guidelines, because you're dealing with international consumer data as well. The other thing is taxation, especially if you're delivering goods into a particular market in terms of what the duty would be. So either, take a logistics partner, and usually logistics partners understand the entire, taxation framework for different countries, and they can help and guide you. But data protection is something that you can check. And today, if you look at, if you're setting up on Shopify or Wix or some of these platforms, they already, take care or safeguard you from a data protection guideline. But it's still, advisable for you to, just check whatever the local guideline is in the market that you're operating in from a regulatory perspective and a data protection perspective, especially.
Okay, great. So I'm going to stay with platform questions because this one comes in from Ilse. So Ilse asks, I use Wix as my web platform and would like to use recurring monthly payments for international clients. Is this possible with Peach Payments?
Martin, this is right up your alley.
Yeah, obviously it's possible to do recurring payments with Peach Payments. The restriction there is with Wix currently. So they have, I think it's 5 or 6 selected or qualified payment gateways that they work with for recurring payments that are not in South Africa. So unfortunately, until we're on that list, it's not possible with Wix. But that's a platform issue. It's not a restriction on Peach's side.
So Martin, the second question is then, I've got a Wix website. I want to do subscriptions. You can't tell me this is impossible in South Africa. So what would you recommend to this merchant if they did want to keep their Wix website, of course, but also offer subscriptions?
Well, what they could do is they could bundle up their product through the basket as a 3-month product, and take a one-off payment at checkout. In other words, we because of the restriction, we can't actually tokenize the card at checkout to automate a recurring payment on that basket value. But if they have a 6-month product, a 12-month product, or a 3-month product, they can just go through and select that product and check out one time for that. Otherwise, they can change the platform. We support WooCommerce for subscription payments and custom Magento. You can look at other platforms besides Wix.
Could you use payment links in this way?
You could use payment links. You could send a payment link and tokenize, and then do a manual rebill or write some type of subscription engine on your end that calls the token. But that's outside of Wix. Again, that's custom development.
Yeah, I'd just say that we offer the payment links product, and the nuance here is you can get you want to get that first payment, and the card can be tokenized, and we can store that token in our enterprise grade security system. But then scheduling that stored card to be used every month or every quarter is where you would need a secondary service to be able to schedule that token to be hit, or you could do it manually on a regular basis. Every month you go in and you make the payment yourself using that stored card, and your customer doesn't have to go and approve anything themselves because they've already stored the card with you in 3DS secure way. So we often see merchants do it a myriad of ways when they want to keep their Wix website. Have products that are time-based and give discounts. So for example, a 3-month product would be a discount of 5%. A 6-month product, you can give a 10% discount. A 12-month product, you can give a 15% discount, because you're going to get that payment all up front and then be able to offer that service for whatever the time period is. And so it's sometimes worth it to get that, to offer that discount to get the higher value transaction. So I hope that helps. Please call in, Ilse, if you want to talk more about the pros and cons of using any website for subscriptions.
Okay, so here's a question that's kind of tied to Wix. Is multi-currency available for all business sizes, or do you need to have a minimum volume? We're a startup which want to launch with multi-currency subscriptions.
Again, Martin, I think this is a good one.
So the banks do take startups, sole proprietors, all legal entities, partnerships, but you need to at least have 3 months banking history. If it's not business banking, it can be 3 months banking history in the name of the director or the principals in the business.
Cool.
The short answer is yes, but we all know that how a bank wants to interpret some of that financial information is up to them.
Okay, next question, Andrea. Does Peach Payments ever withhold payments like some complain PayPal does, and Stripe too?
Do we ever? Absolutely. There is the rare occasion where we see potential fraud in a transaction, and we're going to withhold settlement to make sure we protect not only the merchant, but also the merchant's customer, so that there's a safe and secure transaction. It happens very rarely, but of course, given the volume of transactions that go through Peach every day, it certainly happens, on a weekly basis with some transaction somewhere in our portfolio. So again, it's a very, very limited, because we do have so many automated ways of preventing those transactions from actually happening. But occasionally, we see something in a manual check, or something gets flagged, and upon further investigation, we see that there's an erratic behavior somewhere, and there's lots of different signals that we know to look for to prevent this and to catch it before a settlement actually happens. Great question. Thanks for that.
Okay, Garrett says, I think this is a general question to the broad audience and to the team on the panel. Are we the only business having issues with getting an ABSA merchant account opened for payments in USD to be deposited in an ABSA CFC account? ABSA is the only bank offering this, but I have been unsuccessful for the last 6 months. I don't know if that's a question or just a statement. So,
Martin, I think
Yeah,
I think
I
we
can
can
answer that.
talk about Martin. I mean, the unique case of working with ABSA. I don't know if we can talk about, but I think if you can approach this from a general perspective of, what is the process like working with banks for these types of accounts, and what is some advice you can give to help streamline the process for someone who's obviously had a lot of frustration in trying to get an account? So in essence, you've been doing this for years now. What are some of the tried and true best practices to help get over the barrier to entry?
We help merchants to get set up with their multi-currency merchant accounts and their ZAR merchant accounts through numerous acquiring banks that we're integrated with. So we can help facilitate this process. The CFC question, it comes up a lot because I think merchants get confused with a foreign currency account that the banks provide you with. It is, to have currency in that account that you may acquire cross-border through a wire transfer or through a remittance business. But when it comes to Visa and MasterCard acceptance and settlement, there the mandate is, as mentioned earlier by Saab, that the settlement should be in ZAR or must be in ZAR. So there it can't be settled to your CFC account. There it must be settled. It's converted at the time of the transaction and settled to your South African business account in ZAR currency. So that's where you're struggling. That's where you're not getting your like-for-like currency payment into your CFC account. But it doesn't mean you can't have a CFC account for accepting currencies in another way besides card acceptance. Does that answer the question?
I think it does, and I think if there's more that our audience member wants to tease out, they should just call and ask for Martin, because I think you could talk for an hour about this.
yeah. Okay, we're heading towards our closing, guys. So I've got one more question here. It's from Anonymous again. Is Peach Payments thinking of ways to make multi-currency more accessible to small businesses that cannot afford the 5% conversion fee? Great question.
Oh boy, we're always thinking about this. I think we have to be realistic about the South African Reserve Bank rules, and to the degree to which we can influence a change, loosening of those rules. That's part of us being a part of the payments ecosystem in South Africa, is to have ongoing dialogue with the Reserve Bank. I think one of the things that the way we like to approach this is we want to work in multiple jurisdictions, right? It's one of the reasons why Sandeep is based in Mauritius, and there are completely different rules associated with banking in Mauritius. And we work in Kenya, and in that way we can help navigate where you should set up your business, how you can transfer your business, and what will be the advantages of doing that and disadvantages, frankly, because change comes at a cost sometimes. Sandeep, I don't know if you want to talk about any experience you've had with South African businesses moving and operating in Mauritius, and I don't know, just best practices there.
The first part, yes, we're always thinking of ways and means of how we could probably reduce the transaction cost for the merchant, right? Of course, vis-a-vis the value that is being provided. If you look at the multi-currency account, the way Josh had shown in one of the earlier slides, it adds up to around 8% of the total transaction value, right? So which definitely is on the higher side. And right now, as most of the local companies are opening up to global markets, which is a trend that we are seeing that's happening. The demand for African products is increasing. Africa is playing a major role in the global supply chain. So yes, this is the cost of increasing your geographical outreach and becoming more global. But yes, we're because the cost of transaction is so high, we are thinking of ways and means in terms of how it can be reduced and what needs to be done for it to be reduced, whether it is working with our partners, whether it is creating our own solutions. And so it's always, we're always on the drawing board with regards to this question, especially for the SME sector. I mean, we were looking at some of the statistics that, I mean, it's detrimental for an SME to sell globally because of cost of logistics, lack of understanding of regulation, right? I mean, there are multiple factors on top of, there is a cost. But yes, businesses are still going global, and we, as one of the key components of the overall global, supply chain, as a payment provider, we are working towards, reducing costs which are substantially high, right? And seeing how we can benefit the merchant better. So that's always, I mean, we're always focused towards that and working on it. The second part of the question, that does a jurisdiction like Mauritius become exciting? If you're selling to a global customer base, yes, it does become exciting. I mean, you can process payments in currencies and accept payments in dollar, euro, pound, South African rand, Japanese yen, dirham from UAE, Canadian dollars, and even Australian dollars, Hong Kong dollars, Singaporean dollars. So there are multiple currency accounts that you can open in Mauritius and sell to a global customer base from Mauritius, right? Of course, selling to a consumer providing the service from South Africa, selling to a consumer in South Africa, there's a restriction from a regulatory standpoint. But yes, to a global consumer, you can sell from here. The pricing would range from somewhere between 3.2 to 4.5%, depending on the acquirer you select and depending on the business that you're operating in.
Okay, thanks, Sandeep. So I'm gonna, I think, close it there. I think we've had some great questions, some great discussions, and I hope everyone who's attended found great value from this. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we will be making this available on our social media channels, so keep an eye out for that. I want to thank Josh, Sandeep, and Martin for being panelists on this discussion, and thanks for everyone for attending. If you have any questions or comments, we've got our phone number, email, website, all on the screen at the moment. Pop by if you want to. If you're in Cape Town, we're in Woodstock in Brickville Canvas. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.